I'm Myrto Tripathi. I'm the president and founder of 3 organizations, actually. The first one is called the Voices of Nuclear, or Voix du Nucléaire, as it was created in France originally in 2018, which is 6 years ago, when the opinion around nuclear was not at all what it is today. The second one is Eco-Humans, which is also called RePlanet France, because it's part of the RePlanet Alliance that Carolina will talk to you about. And the third one is the TerraWater Institute, which is a think tank dealing with the overall low-carbon energy systems and all low-carbon forms of energy. My personal background is that I'm an engineer, and I'm also a business management degree from HEC. I spent 10 years in the French nuclear industry. I finished my 10 years as in charge of leading the negotiations for the EPR, the French nuclear power plant, on export markets. Then I joined the climate negotiations for the Paris Agreement for 4 years. And I was shouldering Brice Lalonde, which was a former French Minister of the Environment. And then for the past 6 years, I dropped everything and I decided I was going to start a civil society, NGOs, because there wasn't any NGO that was actually pro-science and pro-nuclear and pro-everything else that actually makes the world work. And we needed some of that. As a volunteer, I did that. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, well, we'll see. So, I was supposed to talk about nuclear today, so I'm going to prevent all disappointments. It's going to turn around nuclear a little bit, but it's not what I'm going to be talking about. I think this is one of the most lessons learned I've had for my past 25 years of professional activities today. So the joke goes, I don't know who within here knows about it, a scientist, an engineer, and a communication professional are in a plane. So several options. Option 1, there's an engine failure, there's only one parachute, who do we save? Option 2, there's a scientist, an engineer, and a communication professional in a plane. How did they get there? Thanks to who? Option 3, there's a scientist, an engineer, and a communication professional in a plane. Do we need a priest? So we'll answer that joke at the end of the presentation. So the point I wanted to make was this, and I know it's a little provocative in this room. It's purposefully provocative, as you probably have suggested and supposed already. The point I want to make really is this one. We already have the solutions to most of the world's problems. And it is not in this assembly that I'm going to remind you what technological, medical, agrological, infrastructure-related, research-based solutions the human genius has brought to humanity and the planet. I could give thousands of examples. I'm going to give one, which, to my knowledge, and probably to all of us understanding here, is underlying every other solutions and every other topic that we know. Whatever how good they are, they would not be able to function without it. What I'm talking about, obviously, energy access. And I'm saying energy access purposefully because words have meaning, not energy on its own. It's because we have been talking about energy that a lot of the misconceptions that we're dealing with today are occurring still. So we're still very much talking about energy access. So what science, let's start with the science. What science tells us about energy access? Science gives us information that tells us this. Science draws on experience feedback, experiment, testing, math and physics, data crunching, all those observation, of course. And it tells us this. It tells us that if we apply the planetary challenge of equal treatment and fairness to our search for which energy access to rely on, we have to discard global sobriety because we need more energy globally. If we apply a second planetary challenge that we're facing, which is climate change, the science, the unchallenged science tells us this, that we have to get rid of high carbon forms of energies, which are fossils and biomass. If we apply the third planetary challenge, which is the environmental footprint and environmental protection, then we need dispatchable and dense forms of energy, and that rules out, or at least that discards partially, wind, solar, and marine energies, and river flow dams, if you want to go that down. And if you add the fourth planetary challenge, which is actually a transversal planetary challenge to all first three of them, which is the urgency and the need to deploy it everywhere, then you only have nuclear left. So that's science tells us, right? We know this. The other thing that science tells us is this. Those are physical characteristics of the different forms of energy. It's rather simple. It's really not that complicated, and a lot of things everything is known widely by everyone and shared. And if you only take two examples, if you take, for example, the carbon nature of all things living, biomass is living things that have recently been dead, and fossils are living things that have been long dead in the past, like the Lipacandrian that dates back 360 million years to 300 million years that piled up and that constitutes most of the coal deposits today. Well, we know this, and so we know that biomass has never been a sustainable, environmentally friendly form of energy. And despite this, a lot of people have continuously, and still now, continue to advocate for biomass and biogas as a potential solution. The other example I have is at the bottom of your right, which shows the fact that whatever how abundant, how low carbon, how clean wind and solar, for example, can be, the fact that they're intermittent and diluted have an environmental footprint so high that they are absolutely indispensable. We have to rely on them to get rid of the fossils, but they cannot be alone a long-term solution to it. So that's what science tells us as well. All those things we know. The science is there, no one challenges them really. But the science, what we realize is that the science alone is not enough. We know that knowing is not enough, and I'm not challenging the fact that Marie Curie may have been helped, or Lise Meitner or Otto Schmidt have been helped a little bit. But to build the EPR of Flamanville 3, which is getting started in these coming days, that's 2,800 people on site for the construction, but that means 10, 100 times more in the factories building it. That means over the years, and I have been part of those people, tens of thousands of people that each have brought their brick and their part of progressing the decision, the understanding, the designs, the constructions, the manufacturing. So technology is applied as science. The science alone doesn't do anything, right? You need it to transform into a practical solution. So we have the practical solution. It's there, it's on shelf. It's on shelf, but it's not used. It's discarded. We have it, but no one uses it, right? Why? Because we need shared science. Shared science is communication. We need people to embrace it, to recognize it, to want it. Otherwise, your science that became an applied science becomes a dead science because no one's going to do anything with it. And they have not despised communication. But we did. We did, the engineers and the scientists, we did. We put science so high that we actually forgot that everything else was important and that science was nothing and not much without them. So science is not enough, technology is not enough, but we still did manage, and so this is where we are, because of this. We are in a situation where instead of replacing 90% of high carbon energy in the world by low carbon ones, we've tried hard, without succeeding, to replace one carbon and low carbon energy by another. So this is exactly where we are. And we're not addressing neither of the 4 challenges I was talking about earlier. So what happened? Okay. But this happened, though, right? In 2015, when I left the nuclear industry and I started working at the Paris Agreement, we were all over there, all the way up there. So the energy transition was go from nuclear to wind and solar. That didn't work. In the meantime, we are in 2024, and the COP28 in Dubai, for the first time, had nuclear in the final documents of the COP. The science did not change in 10 years. It's not the science that did that. What happened in COP25, and actually I reversed my slides, I'm sorry. This is one slide I want to share with you, and I'm going to sit here to be able to read it a little bit. That's a magazine that was published a couple days after the signature of the Paris Agreement. And it says, "Meet the lonely advocates for nuclear power." Imagine how frustrated would you be if you had a practical solution for a climate crisis that threatens to ravage the planet and unleash social conflict that will make the World War II look like child's play, but nobody would listen. And there's my name on it. And I was an engineer. I was from a family of engineers and scientists, and I was despising communication. There was. But this did not happen neither because of my scientist background, neither of my engineering background. It happened because of this. So this is a picture of March 2022, the climate march. And the little girl you see here is my daughter Dune, and she was 4 years old at the time, and she really very much wanted to carry the heart sign. So I let her do it, and she tells me that day, she tells me, "Mom, when you will be dead, I will be the queen of nuclear." And I was like, yeah. And I was like, you know, I mean, there's nothing right with this sentence, right? Nothing. So instead of dwelling on the very serious implications of that sentence, I looked at Dune and I said, well, you know, Dune, I don't think it will be necessary, because when you'll be grown up, we would have solved the problem. We would have managed the climate crisis, and we would have made the energy transition. So in 2050, Dune will be 32 years old. Hopefully, I will not be dead yet. We'll see. And that's in 26 years. It's in not so long. And in 26 years, I put back here the slide I had earlier, we would have had to do this, which means getting rid of 90% of our energy primary sources, replaced it by the 10% that we would have kept, not getting rid of either one of those low-carbon sources of energy because we need them all, and use them to expand and replace the high-carbon one. So the point I want to make, and I will finish on this because I don't know where I am on time, but Jean-Luc is not focused, so that's good. I'll take advantage of the situation. So my point is, if you want to change things, we cannot despise communication, we cannot despise engineering, and we cannot despise science. We actually need all three together, because if you remove one of them, you don't get your solution. And we've known that for nuclear, but we know that for GMOs, we know that for vaccines. I mean, GMOs, we failed miserably. Nuclear, we're recovering, but it's at such a high cost, time, lives, money. I mean, we could have spent everywhere else. Vaccines, we did a great job at the beginning, and we're losing ground. And it happens with tons of things like that. Why? Because we are not doing this. Why? Because we have been looking at communications, and we've been saying this. We've been saying, you know, the scientists, they're the glorious, noble, untouchable, the pure, and even when they're not, and actually it shoots us in the back. I'm not going to use another expression, you see what I mean? Engineering and industry, you know, those are the insincere, evil, greedy, materialistic people, smarter than average, but, you know, to who you have to pay very attention from. And the communication people, which are the superfluous, non-productive, less smart kind of people. And I know this because I've been on one side of that spectrum, and I moved purposefully on the other side, and I see that in people's minds and eyes. And we live through it. But they have to know and understand that if we weren't there now, there will not be a Flamanville 3 today. And there will not be an Old Kilo 203, and there will not be a vaccine for COVID, because even if we had discovered that, or I don't know how you say it in English, ARN messager? RNA, okay, vaccine types, and people would have not wanting it, then we would still be under that epidemic. So where we need to be is here, because people decide for themselves, and that's the strength of our democracies. We've wanted it, it's a good thing, but now we haven't carried the exercise through to the end. It's one thing to give people the choice, it's another thing to make sure that they understand the choice they make. And we very much need to rehabilitate engineering and communication to the level of the science, because otherwise the science is going to stay on the shelf. So what I'm advocating here to all of you people, most of you are from an engineering or scientific background, or maybe not, take on that responsibility of explaining what you do. Finding solutions is in your DNA, probably, but explaining those solutions to make them applicable is really where lies our responsibility today. So we have science uncovered, we have science applied, and we have science shared. But all of this is science, so let's treat them all equally as such. Thank you. And so now maybe you want to help me with the joke. Do you know what the answers are? So option 1, the plane has an engine failure and there are only one parachute. Who should be saved? All 3 of them. Thank you. Which one got them there? All 3 of them, because otherwise people would have never boarded the planes and we would have never had commercial aviation, which I know François-Marie would have rather see that there's no plane, but then we wouldn't have any climate change, right? And option 3, do we need a priest too? Maybe to make the joke better, but no, never, we don't. Okay, thank you very much.
Merci d'avoir regardé cette vidéo. N'hésitez pas à la partager autour de vous et à vous abonner sur notre chaîne YouTube pour recevoir les prochaines. Nous vous rappelons également que vous pouvez retrouver le dernier numéro de la revue de l'AFIS Sciences et Pseudosciences en kiosque et sur notre boutique en ligne, ainsi qu'accéder gratuitement à tous les anciens numéros sur notre site internet afis.org et sur notre application smartphone Afis Sciences. De plus, si vous souhaitez soutenir notre association, vous pouvez également adhérer via notamment notre site internet. Encore merci, à bientôt!